The mania has started, and you'll find slam dunk savings and selection during our Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary all year long, and that means buzzer-beating incentives and special dealer offers, like a new 24 Ford Bronco Big Bend Sasquatch, lease for $499 a month. Or a new Ford F-150, now $1,500 or 2.9% APR during this Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.
Play fake by McCamey. Looking downtown. Touchdown! Basket! $47 yards for the score.
Here's what they're in 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. And it's McCamey to basket. That's it. Now watch. Gordon does a pretty good job. He doesn't get his hands on him. He fell that little stutter. I like what he's doing, but he's got to keep his eyes on the receiver. As soon as his head...
2 backs and 2 tight ends. Play fake to Moore. Looking up top for basket. Got him behind his man. Flag down. The catch is good at the 1-yard line. He got him behind Ernest Gordon, but it didn't matter. The basket comes up limping a little bit.
Well, again, this is the only pass they've shown throwing out of this formation, what Ernest Gordon does. Now, he does a better job. I like him to be putting his hand right there. He's looking up. It's a tough.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
That wasn't too loud. My name's Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press. That's your triple A to start the show. And there is, I guess, football this week. And if you've never seen the movie, The Program with James Caan about from the early 90s about a football program, and I can't find the soundbite. I had it lined up and I messed it up. Oh, here it is. Steve Latimer getting a place at the table. The character actor Andrew Brzezinski, who I once talked to on the phone. Anyway, let me get here with Steve again. Football at the end of the week. Ed, have you ever seen that movie?
I never did. I'm sorry to say I never did. I wish I would have.
It's free on YouTube. I'm going to give you homework closer to football season because it's one of those things that's so bad it's good. All right. That guy does steroids and at that scene bashes his head in the car windows. So, a bit over the top.
Yeah, just a bit.
My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I will full of pop culture puns here. And Ed, no offense, even though the Knicks are in the NBA playoffs, what I say to this play-in games, per Happy Gilmore, don't care. I will watch, probably start Saturday. The NHL playoffs, the NHL postseason is upon us. I care about that. Busy week, busy show for everybody. Spring football is this week. So it's spring football out your ass this week. Tonight's show, Ben Bertram, a former player. I said it right, Ed. I hate to do that on perfect. Ben Bertram. He played at UNM and then he played for Jason Eck at Idaho. We are going to have him on to talk about, hey, what was it like playing for new UNM head football coach Jason Eck at the University of Idaho? 8:30, current defensive lineman, edge rusher for the UNM football team. Boy, I wanted to do a better open tonight and I'm crashing and burning. Gabe Lopez, he will join us. Excited to talk to him. It's his third season with UNM. I believe it's his COVID year. We will span the globe with Gabe Lopez tentatively, if not tonight, just because he's our friend. He is a friend of the Pit Press, Mr. Ben Wysong. You know the name. He's either joining us tonight or he said Thursday. He said if he could hop on, he will, and I'll be able to see him on here. So Ben, at some point this week, it's been a while. We'll check in with Evan. We'll ask him about Evan. We'll ask about Luke at Arizona. And then his thoughts on Jason Eck and what he's seen at spring practice, because I ran into Ben at spring practice, and his thoughts on Bo Hightower beating up former NFL and UNM offensive lineman Robert Turner. I now go to my co-host tonight, Mr. Ed Nunez, a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Ed, how you doing tonight?
Well, we were supposed to fly out to Silver City, and flight was canceled. 2 softball games left, a doubleheader tomorrow and then a doubleheader on Friday, and the season's over. And truth be told, I'm glad. Nothing against going down there. I like doing it, but it's time for the season to come to an end, and we'll fly out tomorrow morning. But no, I'm doing well and looking forward to talking Lobo football. Ben Bertram's dad, Jim Bertram, and I go back to St. Pius with the year that I spent there. So I know Jim real well, and he's a great guy. And his sons, Ben and Matthias. We couldn't get Matthias on. He's flying tonight. So we got Ben. So I'm looking forward to talking to him.
Ed, you've booked a lot of guests for this show, and I really appreciate it. This is one of those, and I think it's a unique one. You don't always need to talk to star power. And I'm looking forward to the perspective tonight. Ed Nunez, the background in your studio doesn't look like Silver City, like Bugs Bunny. You made the wrong turn. Now, great. Thanks. Thank you, John Romero. I went straight to the comments tonight.
That's funny. That's funny.
I'm going to give a heads up for Thursday night show. Jam-packed at your same Lobo time and same Lobo place as I pick my ear on camera. Thursday night show, again, UNM football, blowing it out of proportion this week. Happy to, because unlike the last coach, this one actually talks to people. Hey-o. I didn't have that queued up. Anyway, Thursday night, 8 o'clock, Scott Trey Humphrey, running back, transfer from Montana State, now on your UNM Lobo football team. Looking to talking to him. So thanks. Shout out to Frank Mercogliano, defensive player tonight, offensive player tonight. Hopefully, maybe an offensive coordinator next week, a defensive coordinator next week, and or Jason Eck. They could not join us this week. It's all good. getting ready for the spring game on Friday night, and I'll get to that in a second. Thursday night again, Scott Humphrey at 8 o'clock, Scott Trey Humphrey at 8 o'clock, 8:30, beat writer for the Albuquerque Journal for UNM football, Mr. Sean Ryder. Love talking to Sean. I think he's a bright young reporter, and I think one day I'm going to see him probably covering a bigger program or moving on to doing something. I don't know. I like Sean a lot. And then 9 o'clock, Vienna Cumber, your former UNM women's basketball player. She will join us. I think she's out of eligibility. We'll talk to her about that and her career. And then tentatively, maybe Ben Wysong. I don't know. We don't know. A lot busy weekend. I don't know if I have to go to the Home Depot tomorrow. I'm full of pop culture references tonight. That's all I know. Please check out our website. We also have free content. Let me remove this. Thanks to Capital Fort Santa Fe. Sorry to do that to you. Subscribe to the Pit Press Plus exclusive content. We're trying to get more. It's only $2 a month, $25 for the year. We also have free content on there. I'm not going to eliminate free news to people. That's my background. But I have a business partner who's pretty good at this and rather smart. And this is a capitalist society, and that's the joke I will make. So check it out. Ed, your son has done some good stuff, so appreciate him. And then we have a new writer. At some point, we will introduce Kino on the show, but kind of taking him under my wing, I guess, right now. He's written a couple of things for the website, and I've been quite impressed. And I wouldn't just throw anything up on our website. I don't know if that's a lie or not, but anyway, appreciate him. What else am I missing? And then I mentioned Thursday night. Hey, Friday night is your spring football game for UNM. It is open to the public. And I didn't snip it, and I'm sorry. That sounded terrible. I didn't clip the piece of art or the Twitter page. They are having a tailgate, and then there's a kids clinic at 5, and then the game is at 6:30. It is free, and it is open to the public. I think I repeat myself on this show. I'm enthusiastic about this new regime at UNM athletic department. I think they have Fernando Lobo has proverbially, metaphorically, I don't know if I'm using the right word there, pulled Louis Lobo's head out of his ass and how to market this athletic department. So I'm looking forward to it. Ed, you'll be in Silver City, but I guess speaking of Southern New Mexico, here's what happened tonight. UNM baseball, which we need to talk about a little bit more. The Aggies are in town next Tuesday night, Santa Ana Starfield. I will be there for that game. This happened about, 15, 20 minutes ago. So here you go.
74 pitches today for Aggie pitching. Only 30 have gone for strikes. Fly ball sent out to left. This one will be taken by the wind, and it's gone. Home run opposite field for Will Asby. And Asby homers for a second time in 2 weeks.
I thought he was just running in the outfield.
Field, it's 10-5 UNM.
Well, they're 2-0 against the Aggies this year, looking to go 3-0, I believe, allegedly. And that takes a 10-3 lead into the third inning. So if you were an over better, you're probably really happy right now. Ed, I know we don't talk much baseball on this platform, but they're beating the Aggies. You got to be happy.
Well, John Romero, who's listening, that's for you. This bud's for you, as they say. So I know he'll have a comment or two about that. Ty Wood was just named Mountain West Conference Player of the Week. I believe they're 19-16 going into tonight's game against New Mexico State. One player that I haven't heard much about, and I was waiting to hear. I read the paper and read all their scores because I reported on 99.9. Was Gene Trujillo, the former St. Pius player, the big left-handed first baseman. I haven't heard much about him this year, so I don't know what's going on there because he had a pretty good year last year. But they won. I think lost to Washington State on Sunday here at Santa Ana Star Field. So I think Todd Brown is Will Asby's been having a pretty good season. That homer there, homer twice already. So he's been having a pretty good season so far. No,
it's nice to see. And again, they are down in Cruces tonight. The game's on now. I believe it is on. If you want to turn on, and again, Ed, I'm sorry, turn off the crap on TNT right now. I believe the game is on ESPN Plus, being that. No, I'm not going to look it up, but yeah, I think it's on ESPN Plus. So if you're looking to watch it, or you can just I can actually one up you there. Just go straight to UNM or golobos.com and you can find it there to watch the game. But again, you can stream it live, or I think even on Mountain West Network. Could be wrong there. Go Lobos will tell you though. Hopefully joined by Ben Bertram here tentatively. You know what, Ed? I'll swing to it, being that it's still kind of the bigger news around Albuquerque, which is UNM men's basketball, and Eric Olin has added a couple more transfers. The Patton brothers, Khalil and Kevin Patton Jr. I can make all the George Patton jokes I want. Kevin was at USC, 6'8", incredibly athletic is what I'm hearing. So we've got 5 guys on the team as of right now. I'm sure with a lot of people, it's not enough. The portal does close next Tuesday. And then side note, the football portal opens tomorrow. Some of the UNM football players announced that today. But Ed, I don't know what you know about these players, and I want your thoughts on what Eric Olin is doing building this team. And then if anybody has any other, 6 guys on the team, and if you have any thoughts on that, other than correcting me, which things I should know. I don't know, Ed, your thoughts on the transfers. And it seemed like the Patton brothers were a package deal.
Okay, one of them didn't play much, had a foot injury, but the other one looked, I think, I saw some, Eric Moulton sent a YouTube video on him. He looked pretty good. He looks like he can score, slasher, can pull up mid-range, lob city. Saw a couple of lobs there, athletic. And I think one of the things that Eric said, he might have said this on our group text, yes, Coach Olin's looking for a system, but he's also going to get guys that can create their own shot too. He needs a couple of those when the shot clock's winding down, and systems. You need that guy who's your scorer. We said that a couple of times. Where's the offense going to come from? We know that the last couple of seasons it's been House, Mashburn, Toppin, Nelly, Dent, Mustafa Amzil here and there. So this guy here looks like he can create his own shot. And again, Coach Olin does play a system. He's made that clear that he plays a read and react system. Sometimes read and react is not always going to work. Who's got the ball with the clock winding down that can get me a bucket? And that one Patton, I'm not sure if it's what'd you say? That Kevin and Khalil, right? Kevin and Khalil. Kevin, the video that I saw on him, that looked promising to me. Now Khalil had a foot injury, and we don't know what he's going to be like. But slowly, he's Coach Olin is building that roster, and so again, a lot of people were asking. Cade Dotson moved on. Ibrahim Sacco entered the portal today. Tim Thomas hasn't. What's his name? Thomas is. I can't remember his first name. Daniel Thomas. No announcement on him, but a lot of people again were saying, "Why don't you reach out?" We don't know if he did or didn't. I'm sure he's got a certain type of player he wants. I was hoping Cade Dotson would stay. I was hoping Jovan Milicevic would stay. I was, but you know what? They've moved on, and Coach Olin is going to create his own roster the way he sees fit, and it's coming together. People were panicking last week. Oh, we only have 2 players. Hey, we said it. It's corny. Be quick. Don't hurry. That's what he's doing.
I had to use Jeff Grammer's article for this. Yes, there are 6 players currently making up the Lobo roster. Antonio Chol, who is a 6'9" forward, Garden City Community College. If you've ever watched Last Chance U, Garden City is one of those rival schools for Coach Jason Brown at Independence, Kansas. Independence Cast. I can't talk tonight. Jake Hall, 6'4" guard from Carlsbad, California. Obviously, we knew about him. We were on live. He decided to not transfer to UNM, but forego going to UCSD and heading to UNM. Chris Howell, 6'6" guard, transfer from UCSD. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. And then Milos when I first saw his name, I thought he was the villain from the original Total Recall, Milos Kohagen. Milos Vicentic is also 6'7". I don't know. There's a lot of size there, Ed. 6'9", 6'7", 6'8". You got to like that when you hear that, right?
You know what? If you look at Nelly, what did he have? 6'9", 6'10", and then he had a Tiki, Ali Atiki off the bench at what, 6'8", 6'7", athletic. I don't know that we got what we thought would happen with him. I don't know that but he had, as far as the Tiki, but he had size on the perimeter. Borovichinen, 6'9". He wanted to get bigger, and he did. So yeah, I think that size is definitely going to help. So yeah, I think that's Antonio Chol. Liked what I saw with him. I think the roster is coming together. Just the way Coach Olin, we have to trust the guy. A lot of Lobo fans were saying again last week, oh, we don't have any players. What's going on? Hey man, trust the system. I don't want to say trust the process like Pat Croce said with the Sixers back in the day. That process took a long time and yielded nothing. But we have to trust Coach Olin to do what he thinks is best.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
I think Ben was hopping on. I don't know if he's on yet. But
let's see. I'll give it another second. Maybe we'll cut to a commercial break and bring him on, seeing if he can catch on video. If he can't, it's all good. I still think about Jim Larinaga at Miami 2 years ago when he came and said that 8 of his players were looking to transfer after making a Final Four run. I don't know. That just blew my mind. So the fact that there wasn't a team, it's all good. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with Ben Bertram, former football player for Jason Eck. Looking forward to talking to him. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is Ed Nunez. This is the Pit Press Live.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
The Mania has started, and you'll find slam dunk savings and selection during our Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary all year long, and that means buzzer-beating incentives and special dealer offers, like a new 24 Ford Bronco Big Bend Sasquatch, lease for $499 a month. Or a new Ford F-150, now $1,500 or 2.9% APR during this Hoop Mania event at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.
All right, welcome back to the Pit Press Live. Sorry about that. We're giving Ben Bertram a little bit of a second to join us. Ed, very quickly, your thoughts on Nico Imaleva, the Tennessee quarterback who was basically kicked off the team because he was trying to fight for more money.
Oh, that happened to the UNLV quarterback last year. I believe he wanted more money. They told him to get lost in middle. How do you say his name again?
Imaleva.
Imaleva had already ghosted Tennessee by not showing up to sign autographs and things like that, and I think he wanted considerably more. And I was hearing a commentary the other day, and they were saying that he was getting $2.3 million. He wanted 4.5, something like that.
2.4, and he wanted $4 million.
Okay, he wanted $4 million. So again, this is the nature of college athletics today in 2025. And I was listening to Kenny Thomas this morning on the opening drive with Jeff and JJ. He said he used to get $420 a month. And I texted him. I said, imagine what you would have made today, and it wouldn't have been here. He said that the booster in town would have paid him. I won't even mention who that booster was, but I said, would it have been enough though for you to stay here? And that's just speculation of who and what and where, because that ship has passed. But he would have made a lot of money in NIL. But the Tennessee quarterback, you're going to see more situations like that. We were at the Mountain West Football Conference last year, and the guy that we had on from UNLV, who's associated with UNLV, had said that was going to happen. He had told us that. He said this one quarterback, he's going to want more money, but they're not going to give it to him. And 3 months later or 2 months later, that came to fruition, man. So I think you're going to see a lot of people overvaluing themselves, saying they deserve more, they deserve this and that, and they're not going to get it in some cases, and he didn't. So they're speculating that maybe he might go to USC now. So we'll see. He's going to find a place to land for sure. Whether he gets more than $2.3 million, we'll see.
My argument before we bring Ben Bertram on, say that 5 times fast, is who's stupid enough to pay him? Everybody's blaming the kid, and I get it. He left Tennessee. But I think there's just people out there that are stupid enough to pay him. So I'm going to do our quick transition, our very cool transition. And we are joined by a former football player who played at the University of Idaho for now current UNM head football coach, Jason Eck. His name is Ben Bertram. Ben, how you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I was running a few minutes late. I own a gym here in Idaho, and I was finishing up with some personal training clients. You got
to make that money, and it's all good. It's very cool to talk to a Vandal. Is that one of the best nicknames in all of college athletics?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I was pretty lucky. Vandal and Lobo are definitely pretty cool and unique nicknames, better than like Tiger or Lion or something.
I love it, man. Yeah, I love the Vandals. I love it.
Yeah, I love the Vandals too.
Yeah, we joked about the Vandals might have been more fitting name for a team in Albuquerque with, like vandalism, Vandals.
Yeah.
Can I ask where you are located in Idaho?
We're up in north central Idaho in the town of Moscow. Not Moscow. People call it Moscow. Moscow, but it's Moscow. We're about an hour and a half south of Spokane, Washington.
Gotcha. So you're in the town. I'm a college athletic nerd in this country, and so you're where the University of Idaho is located, and the Kibbe Dome, correct?
Oh yeah, Kibbe Dome, legendary. We're actually kind of a unique situation. Moscow and Pullman, Washington are 8 miles apart. Pullman, Washington is where Washington State University. So you have these 2 college towns in the middle of nowhere. Basically, the whole population of both towns is just college kids. So kind of a unique situation of kind of double little college town here.
That's very cool. Yeah, I knew Pullman and Moscow were, I hope I said that right. Well, so what I do during the day, and I'm no longer in journalism full time, my half my team in sales is set up in Albuquerque and then Boise. So I've learned not to say Boise. To say Boise. So I still get it confused. But anyway, thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for carving out some time on a random Tuesday night to join us. Can you just talk about a little before I get delving into Jason Eck? Can I ask you some questions about how, your football career to let our viewership and listeners know?
Absolutely.
Just how you ended up playing football. Sorry, I didn't even answer that. I didn't even finish asking the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you mean just a little bit about my football background?
Yeah, just a little bit about yourself and obviously your personal life too, aside from football, just the position you played and how you ended up with your football career, I guess, per se. Boy, I'm crashing and burning. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So very long story. Kind of got to tell my story in tandem with my brother, who you guys are going to have on because it's just so intertwined. But we both grew up in Albuquerque, went to Sandia High School, probably the biggest Brian Urlacher fan on planet Earth. So that's all we ever wanted to be growing up was, Brian Urlacher, basically. So played at Sandia. I was actually, when I was a kid in Yaffle, I was a 6-play kid. So one of the kids that only got in at the 6 plays at the end of the game because I was one of the worst kids on the team. Ended up being a pretty good player in high school. By my senior year, I was getting recruited by some Division I schools and ended up breaking my leg senior year. So decided to go to Fork Union Military Academy, which is a prep school on the East Coast, similar to a junior college, but you don't lose any eligibility. Actually played with Christian Darashaw, who's the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history. He was one of my teammates there. But went there, ended up kind of having a weird story. I was going to go to Youngstown State, lost that scholarship, ended up walking on to UNM, played there 4 years, got a scholarship my last season, before my last season at UNM at the same time my brother did, and then ended up getting that scholarship pulled right after that season. Didn't even find out from the football program. We found out from an email from the university at the end of the transfer portal window with about a week left. So definitely got our hearts broken there. And I didn't play at New Mexico. I ended up playing my 3rd season. My first 2 years, I rode the bench. 3rd and 4th year, earned some playing time, got a little bit, never was a starter. Similar story to my brother, and then we lost our scholarship. Decided to leave UNM, hardest thing we ever did in our whole lives. And Idaho, Coach Eck had just got hired, so he got us an opportunity to play here. Matthias had to walk on again, actually. I got a scholarship, turned down a full academic scholarship there, and he ended up getting put on right away here. And then had 2 amazing seasons here, helped turn around Idaho Vandals football. We were, nationally ranked both years. Last year, we were ranked top 5 the whole season at FCS, ended up making the playoffs, and both got to be starters for most of our time, key contributors. Definitely pretty sweet ending to our football career here and with Coach Eck.
I'm sure a lot of Lobo fans will appreciate that number 54 on your chest there. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about the risk, that you took? And I'm sorry to hear that happened at UNM. But can you talk about the risk to move to Idaho and walk on there?
Yeah. So, for me, it wasn't a risk at all. I had my brother, actually, Matthias, had a better Lobo career. He's younger. He played more than I did at UNM. So I ended up getting an offer at Idaho, and he didn't just because we needed players at the position at defensive line. He probably would have gotten some bigger offers in the portal if it wasn't, a couple days before school started at the end of the window. So I didn't take a risk at all. I had an offer here and didn't at UNM, so it was a no-brainer for me. For him, he turned down a full academic scholarship that he had. He had the lottery at UNM, or the presidential scholarship. So he had to go tell my mom and dad, I'm leaving this full academic scholarship that I have to fall back on, and you guys got to pay full tuition at Idaho. So he made a huge risk. And it was kind of funny. He got put on scholarship at New Mexico in August. That December lost it. And that March got put back on scholarship. So he had 2 scholarships in 6 months, basically. But that was the cool part. We started our journey together. When you guys talk to him, you'll learn his story. He's got an even more insane story about being, he wasn't even a starter as a senior in high school, ended up being a 3-year Division I starter. But him just following me here and taking that risk, we started this together as brothers, and you got to give him the credit because he took a huge risk and it really paid off and enabled us to, finish the dream that we started in the backyard as kids, is playing college football together.
That is awesome, man. I appreciate hearing that story. You just mentioned it. You were able to earn a scholarship at Idaho and play under Jason Eck. You played nose tackle and defensive end, and you were a starter for most of 2022 and 2023 and half of this past football season. What can you tell us about the kind of defense Lobo fans can expect to see at UNM this upcoming season?
Well, it's going to be a little bit different than what we ran. I played for Rob Orich, who's actually now the defensive coordinator at San Diego State. He was my DC. And then last year at New Mexico, the DC was Dan Jackson, so they ran a little bit different scheme last year than we did on defense, but a little bit different than the 3-5. I think they're going to do a little bit of multiple 3-down and 4-man stuff. And I think Coach Eck's philosophy is kind of the opposite of what Coach Long always had. They like running more base stuff, and I think Coach Eck, he wants to play complementary football. So his teams, I mean, we always played really hard on defense, but we were more, and I'm not going to say his defenses don't attack because they absolutely do, but Coach Eck was always just huge on being fundamentally sound, not trying to do things where you sell out and, put the rest of the defense in bad positions. Just playing complementary football as a whole is kind of his big thing.
I'm going to throw it over to Ed now.
Ben, how are you, man?
Oh, doing well.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. I knew who you were in high school. I covered one of your games for ProView Networks, and your dad and I go back years, man. And I never saw your face because you had a helmet on, but you look a lot like him. You look a lot like your dad. He's a good man. Coach Jason Eck, he comes highly touted from Idaho. I thought our new athletic director Fern Lovo really, took his time in hiring him. After Coach Mendenhall left after 1 year. The Vandals played Oregon very tough last year before losing late in the fourth quarter. You mentioned, you and I had a talk the other day on the phone. What can Lobo fans look forward to? Is he a gambler? What kind of coach is he? Coach Mendenhall, by all accounts, was a good football coach. Now, as far as selling the program, no. Selling it to the community, no, at all, zero. Now, as far as the football acumen, yes, got to give him credit there. But by all accounts, he could coach. We've seen Coach Eck already in the community. I was mentioning to you the other day about Lobo Up, and that cracks me up whenever I hear it. I'm already buying into that, even though, you'd mentioned he did that at Idaho too. But what can we expect to see? What is he, a gambler? What kind of sideline coach is he? The X's and O's part. What did you see from him?
Well, as a gambler, he's about as much of a gambler as you'll ever find in a college football coach. If you look up, I don't want to give up too much about his strategy, but if you look up, first year here, we played Montana. They were ranked top 5. We were unranked, and kicking the onside kick at the start of the second half. He did the same thing against Montana State this year. If you watched our offense last year, which he had more play in the offense, tons of trick plays, no matter who we were playing. He's a guy that's basically more than not going to go for it on fourth down. So incredibly aggressive and really awesome personality on the sidelines. He's always going viral on Barstool for, antics and how fired up he gets on the sideline. There's actually a picture, our first game against Washington State, my first year, my brother forced a fumble and he ran off the field and jumped and shoulder bumped Coach Eck on the sideline. And Coach Eck's a big old dude. So Coach Eck launched him, like a couple feet back, and there's an awesome picture online of it. But he's a guy that, I love the coaches I played for in New Mexico. A ton of respect for them. They're both incredible head coaches. Coach Eck's a little different in that he really understands that his attitude on the sideline is going to define what the team does. So when something goes wrong, he's never going to, he'll rip your ass for not giving effort, for not knowing your assignment. But if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, he's always going to bring positivity. And you can kind of tell his teams embody his positive attitude and energy. As far as in the community, we talked about it. Lobo football is a tough job in that, UNM's a big city school. It's hard to kind of get the community and the program involved, and no head coach since Coach Long has ever really done that. It's kind of been like Lobo facilities are so isolated from the school. It's hard to, kind of have that unity between the university, the town, and the players. And I think Coach Eck is the guy that's going to be able to do that in a similar way that Coach Long did. He's already started. You already see him around town. What I told him was, every Lobo coach thinks these Pitt fans are just going to support us no matter what. And we can just bring the guys across the street to the Pit and say, oh, we're going to basketball games. We're part of the community. What I told him is that's not, that doesn't work. The Pit, everybody's going to go to the Pit and hang out because that's kind of the epicenter of sports in New Mexico. You need to get guys on campus. You need to go to the local restaurants, around town like Mary and Tito's. And Coach Eck's doing that. He goes to the very devout Catholic. He's already involved with the Catholic Center. My dad said he's already seen him and had tons of just random businessmen around town that have met him at events. So the biggest thing I'd say to Lobo fans, if you see Coach Eck on the street, go say what's up to him. Coach Eck will have a conversation with anybody. He's willing to talk ball with anybody. And he's definitely not the persona of like a big, high and mighty football coach. He's just a regular guy. And I think if people see him in the community, definitely go talk to him because he's all about that.
He sounds a lot like Coach Gonzalez, who was as friendly, to us when he was there with Ryan and myself at the press conferences. Coach Gonzalez would talk to anybody and, was from here, tried as hard as he could, I think, to sell the program. And, it came up a little bit short. There are some people that thought he deserved another year. And again, Coach Mendenhall, a good coach, there's no doubt about it, but didn't seem like he wanted to be here, and he left after a year. So I think what you say about Coach Eck being a positive, we saw that already. I told you one of my friends wanted lunch with him. We met with him at Matusi's, and man, the guy couldn't have been more positive. You want to go out there, you want to support. I told you I've been a fan since 1970. We had some more questions. Now, you mentioned about the defensive side. You mentioned he's a gambler. He's got a full running back room here. He does. And the offensive line, the reports I've been reading in the journal, seems like the line is pretty good last year, and it's pretty solid again. His quarterback, Jack Lane, has got an elbow injury. That seems to be maybe a little bit of a concern. The quarterback room not as crowded as maybe he'd want it to be. He just had a receiver, one of his top receivers, come out in spring ball after being hurt. But what do you think you mentioned he gambles a lot there, but it seems like he wants to establish a strong running game. What can we expect to see on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, number one, I think Coach Eck spent most of his career as an offensive line coach. He blocked for Ron Dine, Heisman Trophy winner at Wisconsin. So he's kind of like, at practice, he's going to be hands-on coaching. We got an exceptional O-line coach, but he's kind of getting almost like an assistant offensive line coach. So he spends a lot of time in individual drills with the O-line. And I think that's why, regardless of personnel on the O-line, you're always going to have a really well-coached O-line just because, the mix of him and the position coach and his knowledge there. The biggest thing Coach Eck's always done is he just plays to his strengths on whatever he has on offense that year. So I think he mentioned at South Dakota, he relied heavily on tight ends when they had Dallas Goedert. First year at Idaho, we had, the best receiving corps in the country, so we threw the ball a lot. I think it kind of just comes down to whatever he thinks the strength of the team is personnel-wise, and that's not something on paper. It's kind of going to come down to camp and what he sees. He's going to kind of work with the pieces he has. Like what I've seen through the portal, the running back room is pretty impressive with, bringing, I can't think of the guy's name, but bringing the guy over from Montana State, and Day, from Idaho. So that seems like that's the strength of the team. So, he knows more than I do, but I would expect him to rely on the running game this year.
You mentioned about you and I. You had me laughing the other day when I talked to you about. You told them, hey, those fans at the Pit aren't necessarily. They don't transfer to University Stadium, and you're right about that. Have you had any other talks with Coach Eck? You've been, the thing is, your son. I'm sorry, you grew up here with your brother Matthias, and watching Lobo football for years. Wanted to be Brian Urlacher. Your dad was raised in this town. Knows a lot about the Lobos football program as well. Has Coach Eck asked you anything else about what your feelings are as far as program and what does he need to do? What other conversations, if you could share them, have you had with him?
Yeah, so Coach Eck, and really this was more kind of conversation. Coach Eck, the first thing he did when he was back in Albuquerque, he went and met with my brother. And I wasn't in town, actually, so I communicated him a little over email, and I gave my brother a big sheet of things to go over with Coach Eck. So that was kind of one of the big things we went over. It's kind of weird with Lobo football. Coach Long, Coach Rocky Long, who I played for, was able in his tenure to bring the fans over to the stadium and sell out games, and no one's really ever been able to do that. So it's almost an untapped resource. We talked about it earlier. When Coach Davey was here, they made back-to-back bowl games, and the attendance wasn't there. And what I told them, we had so many different off-the-field issues in that era with guys getting in trouble around town, just not acting right in the community. I think the biggest thing for Coach Eck is just getting the guys to get out in the community and meet people. And I think bridging that gap along with the success he's going to bring win and loss wise is how you get people back to the stadium. But I think he understands that. And I think that's something that he definitely is taking into account because it seems like he's, been taking every opportunity he can to get out in the community.
Ben, we talked about that too. It's a challenge. It's been since Coach Long. Then, they hired Coach Loxley. A disaster. That was a disaster. Coach Krebs, or they said Paul Krebs ran in a sense, ran Coach Long off. And then they brought in Coach Loxley, who they said was going to add another digit to the scoreboard. Krebs said that didn't work out. Bob Davey comes in, wins 2 bowl games, and the fans, it doesn't move the meter. They average 22,000 out there, and then Coach Gonzalez comes in, and it was tough though. One of those years was a COVID year, and he said that they couldn't even lift weights more than 30 pound weights, man. That's tough. That's tough to build a program when you can't play here in New Mexico. So I'm partial to Danny a little bit. I really liked him a lot, but I think it's we mentioned that the other night. It's not an easy job. It's not because Lobo football fans, I've been a fan since '70. I'll be a fan to the day I die. But once they lose a game, there's a lot of apathetic fans that say, when does basketball start? And you and I talked about that. So Coach Eck definitely has his work cut out for him. You had a standout career at Sandia High School. What was it like sharing this football experience with your brother Matthias?
It was awesome, man. It was, my mom always jokes about it. When we were kids, we would pack a suitcase and say, all right, Mom, we're heading off to go play college football. And, back in those days, it was always Notre Dame or Oklahoma. And we're the Lobos. Those are the teams we followed and didn't expect to be Vandals. But it was literally living a lifelong dream. The biggest honor I've ever had in my life to be able to do that, because so few people get to do that. And just for it to kind of end up like it did here at UNM and to get that second chance, it was just awesome. One of the things my brother and I did before games is we got all these pictures. We'd always run out of the tunnel and we'd always go to the end zone and pray together before the game. Those are some of the best memories I've ever had. Just a bond, that we shared that was pretty cool, pretty special. As far as Coach Eck, I think Coach Gonzalez's career was interesting. Coach Gonzalez is a good football coach, and he came in right away and completely changed the culture. He really did a good job. We were way better. My last season, we were 40th in the country on defense and dead last on offense. So Coach Gonzalez was an defensive guy, brought in Coach Long. And the hard part as a head coach, if you're, Coach Gonzalez is a defensive guy, Coach Eck's an offensive guy, the guy that you hire as your coordinator on the opposite side of the ball is kind of the biggest factor that you don't have control over that determines the success of the team. And Coach Gonzalez, we just never could get the offense going, and that was not his expertise. So I think if we would have had a little more success on offense with Coach Gonzalez's teams, being 50th in the country on defense, we would have probably been a bowl eligible team. A lot of it with him was just luck. He really did his best. Coach Eck, on the other hand, in Idaho, he's an offensive guy. He comes in and brings his really high-powered offense. He hired a guy on defense that was really successful at Idaho. So I think it kind of comes down to luck in that sense. I don't think Coach Gonzalez was that far off. I think he was doing a lot of the right things. And I think that trajectory kind of overall, idea of the program from Coach Gonzalez and Coach Mendenhall, I think it's still on an upward trajectory. I don't think it's necessarily like burning it down and starting from scratch like people think.
I think that's I just need to make one more comment, Ryan. I'll turn it back over to you. I think that's good, Ben. Coach Mendenhall, it must be remembered, he did have, he won 5 games this year. But, that's a team that from last year, you lost your quarterback. You lost a lot of guys in the portal. You lost a whole bunch. It's starting over. But I think some of the players that Coach Eck is bringing here with him, Scottree Humphrey, when I saw that, I read the paper, I'm like, wow, man, that's a good get at running back there. He said this himself, they're a little thin on the defensive line. He needs another quarterback. He said that too. But I'm excited. I think the offensive line, the reports I've been reading from Sean Ryder, seems pretty solid. That'll help the running game. The quarterback, Devin Dampier might have been one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen here. You could arguably say maybe the best. That goes back a long way. New Mexico's had some pretty solid quarterbacks, but he made a lot of plays. When you lose a playmaker like that, you have to see what Jack Lane has. And I asked Coach Eck about that. Solid passer, he said. RPO, he's not got great speed, but he's a smart quarterback. So I think we'll see. But just by you talking about him the way you are, it's hard not to be optimistic because of his positive energy. Now, you and I said that the other day. I said that being a good guy doesn't win you any football games. It doesn't. But he wants to be here. He's selling the program in the community. He's had success. And that's one reason I think Fernando Lobo hired him here. So I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait. Of course, I'm the Lobo fan that's glass is always half full. Always.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think especially Jack Lane. Jack Lane's a guy I think people need to be really, really excited about. Probably the hardest working football player I've ever been around. You know, I played with hundreds of guys. My brother and I always prided ourselves in being, first guys in, last guy out. Jack Lane's a dude that honestly couldn't say I worked as hard as him. He's a guy that, eats, sleeps and breathes football. So definitely good hands in that aspect. I know, Devin Dampier, I actually sat next to him on a plane ride this winter right before he transferred. Probably had the best single season in Lobo history. Maybe trying to think of the name, maybe Sonny Case, maybe in the 90s.
Stony Case.
Probably the only one ever to really compare to him. But I think it's different. You lose a guy like that, but then you got Jack Lane, who's, different talent-wise, but also, him in Coach Eck's offense and system, how long he's been in the system, incredibly intelligent guy. Who knows? He definitely brings different things to the table, just different.
God, Edward. Now that one I'm showing my age on end because we both hopped up and said Stony Case. Sorry to do that to you, Ben.
Yeah, I know I had the last name right.
No, it's all good. I apologize again for jumping in on that. I kind of want to backtrack to the comment that you made about getting people in the people in the pit don't go over to the football stadium. And when the Daily Lobo was an actual newspaper, Ed, there we go. There's one reference, waiting for the New Jersey reference. I covered the Mike Loxley years, and there's more to that than I will tell you over this. You can Google my name and his name because I made national news, and I don't talk about that a lot. But I describe it as an Ellie, which is an extinction level event. Once Rocky was gone, and then Loxley got his, he had the sexual harassment allegation. He had that first season, he punched the coach. He punched his assistant or got a scuffle, allegedly. It was like an asteroid that destroyed that program in that stadium. And the following year, I could count people in the stands. So I think it's fascinating that you've kind of said that. And I'm curious what you think Jason Eck needs to do to be successful at New Mexico. And I'll give you a second. I saw you get up there.
Sorry, I had to grab my I had to make sure I had my laptop plugged in because I was getting a low battery.
No, you're good. I'm not sure if you heard that.
I did. No, I'm good. I heard it.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I definitely want to be clear. I don't want Coach Eck to, text me right now and what the heck, dude? Why are you being negative and saying the fans aren't going to come over? I think Coach Eck is going to be the one that brings the fans over from the pit for the first time since Coach Long did. I truly do. I just wanted to make sure, that he understood. It's not just something that happens. It's something that you guys have to take steps, and I think he is taking those steps. And I think with Coach Davey, we saw it. They won. So they had that element, two seasons in a row, they were bowl eligible, had a lot of really good players. So they fulfilled that requirement. They were doing the wrong things in the community. So I don't think it's that complicated. I think you have to not have those bad situations in the community. You got to have guys that are not just not getting in trouble, but talking to people. That's something I always told guys when I was there. If you're out in the community at the frontier, and someone says, tries to talk to you, knows you're a football player, you need to have a conversation. One Lobo football player starting a conversation around town, if everybody does that every day, you're going to put so many butts in the seats. It's just those small interactions of players and coaches with people in the community that snowball over years and years that kind of rebuilds that trust. So it's not some crazy magical thing. I think it's a mix of, number one, they got to win, which I think they're going to do. And number two, every player and coach needs to have those interactions around town, on a daily basis. Which I think they're going to do. So I think Coach Eck definitely is going to, figure out those two things. I don't think it's that complicated, but it's something that takes actions on a daily basis. It's not just some magical thing that happens.
No, I appreciate that answer. No, I wasn't trying to get you there with that. I just, I had talked to Ed and he had mentioned that you said that. And I was like, gosh, darn it. That's actually pretty true about the Pitt fans. But, and again, I'm not looking for any negativity. I mean, what he did, and I've grown as I've gotten older, and also I'm a degenerate gambler, but I love the FCS. I love Montana State. I loved watching Idaho. I think 2 years ago, Sacramento State was good. So I'm a big, and I hate to say this as you're a University of Idaho alum, I love watching Montana and Montana State play. And the Dakotas, and now I forgot what I was going to say. Gosh darn it. But anyway, I guess I'll ask you about the FCS. I mean, people have touted this as an FCS all-star team. Can you talk about the talent that is at the FCS level? Because again, I love watching it. I think it's a fantastic product, and I love the playoff. I think the playoff is exciting as hell.
Yeah. Well, I think talking about FCS football, you kind of got to look at the Big Sky in the Missouri Valley separate from other conferences, because the lower level FCS conferences, even though there is good teams from time to time, probably closer. Those other conferences are probably closer to D2 than the top of the Big Sky in the Missouri Valley are to the mid majors. I think Idaho, Montana State, North Dakota State, South Dakota. I think if you put any of those teams in the Mountain West or the Sun Belt, probably finish at the top half of those conference. And then I think the bottom of the FCS is, like I said, nowhere even close. I think you kind of got to separate it, those top level programs. And I think if you look at, we don't have all day to talk about this, but Idaho went up to FBS in the late 90s and dropped back down. We were a powerhouse at FCS up until the 90s, one of the greatest programs of all time, even though we didn't win a national title, consistent top 5 team. Idaho kind of saved FCS football on the West Coast because we went up to Division I at the same time as Boise State. Boise State was incredibly successful. We weren't, and we're the only team ever to drop back down. So I think we were kind of assigned to these schools like Montana State, the Dakotas, that, hey, we're in a rural locations. It's not a good idea to move up. Let's build something at the FCS level. So I think that's kind of created. You've seen all the best East Coast teams, App State, Coastal, James Madison. They've all moved up and been successful. And the West Coast schools that don't have the population density has kind of seen what happened to Idaho and decided, hey, let's just stay at this level, and let's build a real high level football, league at the FCS level. And we've seen that. We were obviously we were keeping pretty close track of this. We were common opponents with New Mexico, Idaho. My 2 years here, we were 2-0. They were 0-2 with Nevada and Wyoming. I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. I think Coach X is going to have the Lobos at the top half of the Mountain West right away. But I think it's pretty hard to argue that the top of FCS football isn't right there with the top mid majors in the country.
No, I love watching it. And I'm sorry I lost track of that stupid question that I was going to ask. Secondly, and again, I can't believe I'm prefacing this again. I'm excited for this football season. I really am. Jason Eck to me has been, and you know him personally, I think it's a breath of fresh air, especially with the last coach. And I'm not a fan. It was weird to me. And then my experience with Mike Loxley. But you look at the schedule this year, and I'm going to gather that, we already know this. You play to win the games. It's true. When you look at this schedule this year, it's at Michigan. They get Idaho State at home, which I'm sure, I think it's a coincidence that Jason Eck gets to play Idaho State at home. But then they go to UNLV, they go to Boise, excuse me. And then they got to go to Pasadena. It's a little bit of a rough schedule. Me from a fan point, I really am like, I think Jason Eck gets this year and we'll get this thing going next year. But is that when you see those couple of games there and all on the road, do you think it's a really good chance for Jason Eck to show what kind of coach he is?
Yeah. So, funny story. When we were at New Mexico, we played Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and we always kind of knew going into those games, regardless of what was said, we were going to get crushed. So our first game in Idaho, we go play at Washington State. And Matthias and I, my brother, are thinking we're a lower level than where we're at New Mexico. We're probably going to get beat by 50. Going into that game, we had no clue. And then we had a chance to beat them on the last play of the game and lost by 3 to Washington State. The next year we lost, or that same season we lost by a touchdown to Indiana, lost by a touchdown to Cal, almost beat Oregon, who was number 1 all year. So every game Coach Eck played in his career at Idaho against a Power 5 school, we were in the game. So I fully expect him to go in and have a chance to compete with Michigan and UCLA and Boise and all those games, just because that's what he's done his whole career. That's his track record. He's never been blown out. The only team he ever got blown out by was Montana State in his career at Idaho. And that same year we played Oregon tight. So I think no matter what, they're going to go into those teams and compete, and they're going to have belief no matter what, just like they did in Oregon. And for the guys on Lobo football this year that didn't play for Coach Eck, just go watch that Oregon game against the number 1 team in the country. probably Idaho last year probably wasn't as talented as New Mexico is going to be this year, and they competed toe to toe. So why wouldn't you go into that Michigan game with that same belief?
No, I appreciate that answer. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of on the, I'm kind of have a sense, like, I bet you like they're going to come in and kind of punch Michigan and UCLA in the mouth, and they're not going to like, and I don't know how good UCLA is going to be because they weren't really that good in the Big Ten last year, but I don't know. There's just a different vibe around it. We're joined by Ben Bertram, who played for Jason Eck, and keeping you on a little bit longer now. We were waiting for our next guest. But can you tell us what you're doing now that your post-football career in Idaho? I think we kind of got a guess on it, but if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so here, let me 1 sec. Let me grab my little guy.
Well, Ed, since we've got a moment, great guest. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what's love the view too. He's changed views, turned the lights on and off. I love his background, man.
Here we go. So here's my little guy. This is
oh my God.
This is Madden Michael Bertram. He's 2 weeks old.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that's what we got going on right now. About 2 weeks old, and he's going to be the next Bertram football player. Hopefully, we gave him a good football name. But yeah, that's kind of my life right now. My fiance Jenna, hoping to get married next year. He came a little earlier than expected, but that's what God blessed us with, and he's been a ton of joy. Other thing I've been doing, I actually own a gym called Palouse Performance here. Palouse is the region here that University of Idaho is in. It's an agricultural region in North Idaho. So I opened Palouse Performance about 8 months ago. I specialize in training high school athletes, and I'm also the only powerlifting gym within 100 miles of Moscow. Actually, in Albuquerque, my brother and I train with a guy named Jordan Chavez at Zia Strength Systems in Albuquerque, who he's actually John Jones' personal trainer, one of the top strength coaches in the country. And we worked with Jordan from the time we were in high school until Matthias still trained with him for his pro day. And we wouldn't have played college football if it wasn't for Jordan Chavez and all he did for us. And he kind of gave me the framework to kind of taught me how to open a gym and how to. So I was able to driven around the whole country the last year, buying used equipment. I made, trip to Albuquerque and back, a couple trips to Seattle, Portland. I've been driving all over the place buying equipment. And I was able to, open a gym within a year of finishing my football career without anywhere near the funding that I would have had. So definitely lucky to be in that position.
That's just as interesting as your football story. I find that fascinating, man. That's definitely putting in a lot of work. Ed, do you have any final thoughts? Because I hope the baby's. I heard him there. I hope he's okay. I'm sure he is.
He's all right.
I'm a father too, and I'm like, I get so worried about little guys. So I get.
He likes to nurse, and I always tell him, Dad's boobs are only for bench press, buddy. He doesn't have milk in them.
No, Ben, we appreciate you joining us, and I think you gave us some great insight on Coach Eck. I think the positivity and his belief, the change in the culture you mentioned that. I think Coach Mendenhall did it. Was on his way to changing it. They won 5 games with the chance to get into a bowl. They didn't get there, and so I think again most of that team is gone. But just the way you described Coach Eck and the job he did at Idaho, I think there's real hope he can come in here and win and change the culture and get Lobo football. Hopefully, Ben, it's a long road, man. Since Rocky Long, a long road. And there's been coaches that have come in here, Loxley, Danny, Bob Davey, didn't work out. So hopefully this is the guy that does it. And again, can't thank you enough for giving us some real good tidbits about him and your brother, man. Yeah, that's some good stuff there. So I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and biggest thing I'd say to Lobo fans is just believe in Coach Eck, man. He's done it before. So just trust his track record. He's done it, and he's going to turn around Lobo football. Guarantee it.
Ben, again, pleasure. Thank you so much. I will let you get to tend to your little guy. Congratulations, and we really appreciate you, man. Maybe we'll bug you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you guys all have a good talk with my little brother. You guys have a good one.
I'm looking forward to talking to him too. You were a pleasure talking to you, Ben Bertram. Thanks, man. Have a great evening.
Ben.
You too. Bye.
All right, that was Ben Bertram. Ed, God, now that I'm a father, when I see a little baby, I'm like, oh boy, like it. I don't even know how to describe it. They're just so. I'm going to sound like a whip, but I don't ever talk like this on this show. But that's a brand new baby boy, like that. I don't know. It just.
I got to tell you a funny story. When Nick was born, my son, I was nervous about holding a baby, and then finally I rocked him between my legs, and everything. It was downhill. I wasn't scared to hold him after that, but I was at first, and then I learned, to be a dad and to have those moments. And I'm proud to say that my son is a very good father and very proud of him. And so yeah, those moments. And I look at Ben, and I look at you, and I tell you that about your son. Enjoy every moment. My granddaughter's already 6 years old, and I think, man, we're lucky we've got 6 more years before she get friends and the phones, and maybe doesn't want to be around Grandpa and Buella anymore. But I don't think that'll ever happen. She's really close to both of us, but especially to my wife. Buellas are different than Grandpas, and I understand that. But yeah, enjoy every moment of your son, and look at Ben and his little toddler. Man, they're different when they're little like that, So yeah, I thought he was a great guest, and sure gave me a lot of reason to be optimistic about Coach Eck.
No, and to piggyback off the father thing, I mean, you totally changed when you're a dad, and now when I was in Cleveland, my mom got him, and my mom had Aiden, my little boy, and I called my mom just to check in from the hotel room. I think before I went to the arena for more media, Hooba Joob, and my mom was like, here's your son. She always jokes like, here's your father, here's your son. And I was like, I jokingly call him, his nickname is Boops or Mr. Boops. And I said, hey, Mr. Boops, how you doing? And he didn't even say hi to me. He just was like into the phone, was just like, my Nintendo Switch didn't start. So I helped him get his Nintendo Switch on, and my buddy Steven was there, and he just started cracking up because it was just so great how he said it. He didn't even say hi. He was just like, my Nintendo Switch won't turn on. And now he's big, he just turned 8, and I looked at him and I was like, God, you're getting so big. Like his legs are so long. I don't know. I'm like, it's
yeah, man, that's how quick it goes. It's and that's what, I got to say this, that, I'm getting older now, and life, the miracle of birth is it's just, it is a miracle when you see that, your son and your daughter, and even my granddaughter when she was born, and look at her now, 6 years old, and I look at her and I just, I lament, we had unfettered access to her. We've spent a lot of time with her and helping develop her character, and I couldn't love her anymore. It's being different being, you can ask your mother that, being a grandparent is different. Not that we don't love our kids. It's just, you see your son, or in your mom's case, you reincarnated. There's things that Aiden does, and I'm sure reminds your mother of you when you were little. So same thing with Olivia. She'll do something that Nick did, and I'll be stopping my tracks like, oh, your daddy used to do that when he was little. So it's a great experience. And look at Ben. He's a very proud father.
I will say this, when he was just all, hey, look at what I'm doing. And I was like, and then he brought a baby, and I was like, that's not what I expected, but it was awesome. Not to switch gears on just talking about being a father, because Ed, I respect you and I appreciate that, because we're all dads on this show. I don't know what did you take away from what he had to say about Coach Eck?
I can't wait now, but I got to say this now. This is, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't. But back in the day when Coach Long was here, and we've had Ian Clark on, we've had Mike Mahorek on, we've had Landrick Brody on, we've had Curtis Flakes on, guys that played during that time. Ian Clark, we've had him on more than once. We've had Jared Baxter on. And that team was very special. Coach Long put together, and Ian said this, a team of defensive dogs, man. The dogs that they had, Blake Lagone, Frankie Solomon, they had some dogs there on that side of the ball. And I think people were excited about the defense that Coach Long had. The offense, they found their way, but it was a defensive-minded team. So you had a lot of local guys. Ryan Cook, Robert Turner went to the pros on the offensive line. Dontrell Moore, Hank Baskett. Dontrell Moore would have gone pro, hurt his knee. Hank Baskett went to the pros. So, I think Coach Long found a way. The defense really sold here. Now Ben Bertram saying that, fans, Lobo players need to have conversations in the community, and that's true. The only problem with that, remember what Glover, I hate to say this is what Glover Quinn said. We had him on last year on the podcast, and this is exactly what he said. Anybody does anything good at UNM, they use it as a stepping stone. He said that. He did. And some of what he said isn't without some merit. Now, as a Lobo fan, I'm still, people are going to take shots at me. Why are you saying that? because, some of that's true. Now, I still am optimistic. I'm excited because that he wants to be here. We didn't know Coach Mendenhall obviously didn't want to be here. You mentioned that he looked miserable. I always said, give me $1.5 million, see how miserable I am. So he's not here any longer. He wanted to be gone. He's gone. This Coach Eck wants to be here. So I'm excited about that. And just the way Ben described his defense and his offense, he's a gambler. He'll go for it on fourth down. You got to get you got to get people excited to win. What is it going to take to get the fans back? That's the question. It's been a long bridge here between Rocky and then Loxley, Davey, Danny, and now Jason Eck. That's 3 coaches since Coach Long left. That's a long time. Will they come back? If they win consistently, will they come back? So I'm hoping they will. I know I'm going to be there and as much as I can and following and reading and listening like I've been doing for 55 years. I'll always be a fan. So I think he gives us a lot of hope. And I think Ben gave us a lot of great, reasons why, we should follow the program and be excited about the possibilities of him establishing a winning program here at UNM.
What's funny is I play that clip of that McCamey to Hank Basket clip.
Yeah, God, I love that. Yeah, I'd love to watch that.
But when you watch it, look at the crowd. I'm going to replay it just because look at you when you watch it, you hear the crowd and you see the crowd.
Yes.
And it looks like a college football game. I'm just going to play that first clip again here.
Little play fake by McCamey. Looking downtown. Touchdown! Basket!
Just the roar of the crowd and the visual of the crowd. I mean, it's been almost nearly 2 decades since it's like that. And I always mention on this show, 20 years ago when I was in high school, my 2 friends, we lived and died with Lobo football, and you couldn't walk on the concourse. And now it's like they couldn't pay you to be in the stadium. That program, that attendance in that program died so fast, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought,
yeah, no, dude, you're right. Remember, Rocky Long too, though, was a favorite son here. I remember listening to him on the radio with the great Mike Roberts. He ran the Wishbone offense here. So he was he's not from here, but he was a favorite son here. He was. Remember, he's the kind of guy that you've heard this. He'd see people in the community and go out and reach out to them. He lifted weights with his players. We had Ian Clark tell us that. So very much a community guy, somebody that Lobo fans remembered and connected with. So they didn't connect with Bronco Mendenhall. He didn't want to connect with them either. He had no connection with the community or fans, none. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you he couldn't coach. He's obviously been successful at BYU and Virginia, but he didn't want to be here. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry about that.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, I'm not going to knock anybody. And I think a lot of people that watch this show, that have consistently watched us for 2 years or the year that we've gone live now. And, me, I hate a lot, I guess. And my buddy Mike called me Troll Mari, which I thought was fantastic. And I've said it, I'm enthusiastic. I just thought, I'm not here to knock on anybody if you have a medical condition. I understand it. That's not what I'm here to do. I just thought for Mendenhall to be in here, and I was told in Vegas by somebody it was a weird hire. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it is. And then a lot of people were like, it's a great hire. It's a great hire. I mean, that defense was so deflated last year. You could see it. And, I felt really bad for those guys. Like we had Dimitri Johnson on, and he made probably the defensive play of the year with that interception against Utah State. But, the press conferences, you didn't have any access. And I always made the joke, you're not invading Normandy. Like holy hell, this has nothing to do. It's football. It's a game. Are you that paranoid? I mean, obviously we knew that UNM was not going to play for the national championship. I think we wanted 6 or 7 wins to jumpstart this thing to vie to win a Mountain West Conference championship. I just thought Broncos' demeanor, and it was, gee, golly, gosh. And then, they got their asses kicked, and he was like, well, it was like the Loxley thing. The way he looked in press conferences is that he looked like he didn't give a shit. And yet it was weird because they played really well on offense. And I don't know if it was talent or if it was the offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, but I don't know if they survived on talent or if he was kind of half-assing coaching, but to me, he just looked like he did not care.
I'll tell you one thing. I disagree about the coaching. I think he gave it everything he had. I do. Yeah. I will say that there's no coach that I've ever met that except Craig Neal that quit on the Lobos. Craig Neal, I will say, quit. He quit on the Lobos. He did that. I'll stand by that. As soon as Cullen transferred, he quit. He absolutely quit. So I didn't think Bronco did. I just you mentioned he didn't want to be here. Hey man, I'm glad he's not here. And like I told you, I mean it too. I hope he loses every single game he ever coaches. That's me, though. Somebody else may say, why do I feel like that? Because, I think he used us, man. He did. He didn't want to be here. He should have never come here. And, again, he did win 5 games. I'm not saying we had Luke Wysong on, and I asked him what kind of coach Bronco is. He swore by him, said he's a great coach. I'm never going to say anything about that. I'm just saying he didn't want to be here. And this program you mentioned, okay, I forgot Bronco. So you've had Rocky after Rocky left. You've had Loxley, you've had Davey, you've had Danny, you've had Bronco. You've had 4 coaches here. And, Danny wanted to be here. They didn't give him an extra year. Rocky didn't want to leave, and he actually applied for the job. I read it in the paper. He applied for the job when Bronco, got the job. And he said it in the paper a year ago. I wanted to win. I thought I could win there. They didn't think that. They didn't agree. So they hired Bronco. In retrospect, should they have hired Rocky back? And at that time, a lot of people said, including myself, that ship had sailed. I said no. I remember saying that. In retrospect, should they have hired him? I don't know. Now here we are with Coach Eck, who I'm very excited about. There's no looking back now. Coach Eck, in what Ben Bertram said, and he knows him pretty well. I'm excited about it. But again, I'm anybody that's positive and has that positive energy and wants to be here and is selling the program. I don't know how you can't be, if you're a Lobo fan, be excited about it.
Whoops. What I will say is when I've gone to the last 2, instead of when you walk into that stadium, it's weird because I've walked into the south end zone the last 2 times I've been at practice, and you walk in and it kind of has a university stadium feel, like a college football stadium. And you walk in and you look at the tower and it does look pretty cool, but that thing is so old. Like it's such a weird stadium. I wish they would kind of bowl it or do something, or this is talking super hypothetical. I don't know, blow it up and let them play a community stadium for 2 or 3 years. Look what, Christ, you're in a conference with UNLV, who plays at Allegiant Stadium. Boise State's that's like a college football shrine, probably one of the top 10, popular favorite stadiums. I know we have the Pit, but it's, I think about schools like, I know it's a different ball game, but like schools like Kentucky, that stadium's huge and they still show up. It's just different, but I don't know how to change that football stadium. Ed, you sound like you wanted to say something.
No, you know what okay. So Coach Eck had mentioned that in the meeting that we had, that, maybe changing some dynamics here and there. And I think the legislature was going to appropriate $11.5 million for some renovations. That place needs $60 to $70 million. Let's be honest, it does. And for the reasons, Jeff Symbieta has been big about the renovations needed, about people. You got 2 gates open. You got concessions. Some bathrooms didn't work. A couple years ago against New Mexico State. You can't have that. You cannot have that. And I know they're working on it. And I know they're Fernando Lobo has it in his mind to improve it. It needs to be improved. It does. That stadium has needed a facelift for a long time. And $11.5 million will get you what? It won't get you much. not these days. If you look at the $60 million spent in 2009 at the pit, it seems like such a long time ago. Took away the mezzanine, got those boxes up there. I don't know, the facelift in the front. I guess. But yeah, they need a lot of money, and and they know that they need to renovate that stadium. They know that changes need to be made. So let's see what they do. Coach Eck said it's on the table. Fernando Lobo, a young, energetic, smart guy, brings in all these. You got young kids there now, young people, I should say. They're not kids, but they're young people. That's why people were saying, "Oh, Steve Alford." I bet he never was even considered. Not because he's not a great coach, but Fernando Lobo probably said, "I want my own guy, man. I want the guy that I want," and he got his guy. He got two of them. Got Eck, and now he's got Eric Olin. So I trust the guy, man. We got to trust him. What are we going to do? There's going to be the usual we shoulda, woulda, coulda, and that's not going to matter.
I sound like I flip flop here, but it's. Change is good, and sometimes change isn't good. It's I think it's probably a positive thing that it's these two guys and might be able to be a 1-2 punch and dominate. I think that it's set up to do that. Gabe Lopez from the UNM football team was supposed to join us at 8:30. He no-showed, so we haven't had that happen in a hot minute. So I apologize, everybody. It looks like Ben Wysong is going to join us on Thursday night. So we might be blowing Thursday night even more out of your rear. Thursday night, 8 o'clock, Scott Ray Humphrey. So Frank, I don't know if you're watching. I'll be reaching out. 8:30 will be Sean Ryder, Vianney Cumber at 9, and tentatively, just because he's a amigo of the show, Mr. Ben Wysong, he's always welcome. And I will throw him at the end of the show just because I can. So if he's watching, he's probably like, "Oh, what that guy?" But Ben's always happy to join. We're always happy to have him on. To the comments, I did that one. 6 guys on the roster. Congrats to Lobo Baseball today. Scoreboard trumps hot air in my direction, and I think it was the end of the last I saw. They're done with 7 frames, and the Lobos are up 12-6. I think you get run ruled with 10 runs. Eric Markham, Patton looks great. And I'll go to the comments. I don't know if I said that. Patton looks great. What his San Diego highlights? His little brother looks good too. Team is coming together. Troll reminds me of Danny Granger, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm sorry, I got to figure that out. Reminds me of Danny Granger and could also create his own shot. Watch touch. Thank you, Eric Markham. Watch the Sanding Patton Jr. highlights. I was given a lot of shit for not being able to read the comments on this show. Eric, I love you. Thank you for watching, but there's a reason why. Shouldn't drive and text, LOL. No, you shouldn't. There we go. Now we know why. Ice baby, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Gonzalez couldn't coach my son's Pop Warner football team. When we win, fans will come in. Coach Eck is smart enough to know that. Congratulations to the baby. Angelo, they've brought really great energy to, there we go. Now I can't read. They've brought really great energy to their profession. X seems to really care about recruiting as well. I think they're worth trusting 110%. Yes, I do. Where does University Stadium stack up against UC Davis's stadium? Not well, because I've seen it. They are trying to put like 30 million or 60 million in renovating, and Boise is renovating their stadium again. They just put a new video board. They do lights. I've been there. I'm going again this year. It's a smaller stadium capacity wise to University Stadium. What makes, I don't want to bring this up again. When you're on the south side of the stadium, it's just like the grass and the hill. It looks like shit. It does not look good. And as a recruit, I'd walk in Boise's campus. I mean, I know it's comparing apples to oranges, but like when you're there, that looks like a mini NFL stadium. Like, it was cool. And there's bars and restaurants across the street. again, where I think Albuquerque and New Mexico are like 10 years behind the rest of the country. And I understand it's like, I think what's considered with the bars and the restaurants is the DWI problem here. But I mean, the economy, I don't know what would drive shops and restaurants. Not everybody has to go out and get blacked out drunk. I don't know why there's not a area, and I know that's coming. It's gonna, I have to see to believe. I'm from Missouri. I think it would just make that whole area great. And I was watching the news on Saturday morning, not to go off on a tangent, and KOAT referred to Lobo Village as dorms. They're not dorms; it's private living. You can pay to live there and not be a student at UNM. Jerry Ortega, could former Idaho wide receiver Mark Hamper be an option after it looks like he was going to enter the transfer portal again after committing to Wisconsin? I don't know anything about that. I would have to look at that. The transfer portal makes me want, as much as I love it, and I think it's good for these kids. You could say what you want about the Tennessee quarterback. The transfer portal makes me want to yell like Robert Downey Jr. in one of those satirical commercials from Tropic Thunder. It drives me nuts. I can't keep up with it. And then especially with basketball now, like I don't know. I'd have to, Jerry, I appreciate that. I'd have to look into it. Somebody probably a little bit more knowledge than I. Again, I wish I did this full time, then I'd be able to give you an answer. So I apologize. I will look into it. Relocation of University Stadium possible. Ed, I don't know how you feel about that before we get out of here.
Highly unlikely right now. I mean, where would, again, the question, land, lease, so do they own it? Look how long it took United to get their deal done. And, is that done? So that's been floated before, I don't know. I mean, if you're, and the Hunter Green said this, back in the day, goes, hey, they spent $60 million on renovating. Maybe they should have built a new pit. Although, the pit is iconic. It is. And, he may have just said that at that time, but I don't think that's a bad idea, Angelo. It's not, but, thinking about possible destinations for them, nobody wants to, I don't know if Lobo fans would want to go, travel to the west side. I don't know if they would. They're pretty spoiled about their locations, and heck, they don't go to University Stadium now, and I hope Coach Eck can change that. I think that's a future conversation if fans start coming back. Certainly something that they should look at and maybe talk about. They're going to move the state fair, so anything's possible, right?
They're going to move the state fair?
They talked about moving locations. The governor's talked about it, so I don't know where they'd move it, but she's talked about it. Because that's the most important thing on the docket. Michael Cedillo, Mesa del Sol might be a location for a new stadium. Are you referring to a Lobo football stadium? You can't get people to go in downtown area at UNM, let alone, I don't know, Mesa del Sol. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I playing devil's advocate here. I mean, that's where they wanted to put the United States. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't understand it. Somebody smarter than I. I experienced Presley Askew football field prior to Aggie Memorial. Charlie Johnson used to dominate there. Charlie made at the NFL Hall of Fame. That's right. Ed, before we get out of here, I don't know. Could you build it across from Lobo Village right by the highway? I mean, people probably think I'm nuts. If you've ever been to Philly, that football stadium sits right on I-95, as does Citizens Bank Park and Wells Fargo. It's all together. I use that as an example, especially if you've ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's I-95 at the beginning in the credits. I don't know. Maybe you could build a stadium along I-25 and just put home of the Lobos with this font right there. This one, which I hope they put on the helmets. I was going to ask Gabe Lopez that. Ed, any other final thoughts? No, just like I said, I think Ben Bertram gave us a lot of. I'm glad he came on, and we'll try to get his brother Matthias on, who's got sure some stories to tell as well about his time at Idaho and UNM. So I thought Ben was a great guest. I'm glad he came on.
Ed, I appreciate you booking him. I think we all have our own connections doing this show, and we all pull our own strengths. Appreciate it. Just dig down some more and call it the Den. Kino, that's pretty good. I don't know, just blow it up and have them play a community stadium. I mean, I don't know. It might be 2030, but that thing's built in a hill, and when you walk to the south end zone, it's completely different than the north end zone. It's like night and day. Thursday night, hopefully we'll have a football player on. Gabe Lopez, the defensive lineman, was supposed to join us tonight. Might have been a miscommunication there. I was told on Saturday I had Gabe Lopez tonight and Scott Trey Humphrey on Thursday. Hopefully we'll have Scott Trey on. He is set for 8 o'clock. Sean Ryder at 8:30, 9 o'clock, VNA Cumber, and Ben Wysong after that, tentatively, if he can join us. Ed, thanks to Ben. I appreciate it. And we kind of had to wing this show tonight, so much appreciated. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, Pit Press Plus, check it out. There is exclusive content on there. We're trying to get more. The website still is free with news, but what Nick wrote, and trying to do some feature stuff behind, to put behind the paywall, $2. It's less than a cup of coffee a day. So $25 for the year. Check it out. Again, spring game is Friday night, 6:30. It's free to the public. Kids Clinic, they've tweeted out the tailgate beforehand, which again is, I think, what UNM is doing with the spring game is one of the smartest things I've ever seen that school do, especially when it comes to athletics. So I am intrigued. This guy, as I've always said on the show the last month or two, if I'm enthusiastic, they can get people in the stands. Ed, I appreciate you joining us tonight, or joining me tonight, as I should say.
Oh, of course. No, it's a lot of fun.
For my business partner, Eric Malton, Jacob Neff, Nick Nunez, go check out Nick's article on the NCAA and the house settlement. Don't do anything that I would do. We'll be back Thursday night. And Lobo fans got to be happy tonight. They are beating the Aggies down in Cruces in baseball. So that's muy importante. I'm Ryan Tamori. This was the Pit Press Live. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to you Thursday night.